Hello everyone, it's me, Elvison here, and welcome to this video, which is about boobs, lumps and lingo. It is World Cancer Day today, and we are going to open up on the topic of cancer, the taboo topic, the terrifying one, the exhausting topic of cancer. And we're going to talk about lumps, and if you check yourself regularly, do you really? I didn't, and suddenly I found a lump in my breast. Do you know what to do if you do find a lump? And do you know that there's a lot of good news around cancer these days, that it can be treated and it doesn't have to be a death sentence? This is something both Kate Henwood knows about. She's been on a long cancer journey, and also Catherine Fagan, who has been on a shorter cancer journey and is now cancer-free. So let's hear all about boobs, lumps, and the lingo we need to use. So hello, Kate Henwood, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is with you.
and all day welcome to you. And Catherine, hello, how are you?
Hello, hi, I'm fine, thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on board. And what we're going to be doing today is talk about cancer, because it is World Cancer Day. And I think we are not actually, well, it goes in waves, doesn't it? And that's the thing. We talk about cancer on certain days and then we forget about it, those of us who can. And because I actually had a bit of a scare last summer myself, and I realized how little I know about anything. And also, I didn't know the varieties and what to do and what would happen next. There was such a lack in information that I felt really embarrassed. So it was a really steep learning curve for me. And I was a very fortunate lady, so I didn't have anything to worry about. Of course, that was then, and anything can change any day. And I think that's what we kind of all know and carry with us. And some people, I think, feel, oh, it's not going to happen to me. I felt for many, many years that, oh my God, when is it my turn? So I think we either kind of had one way or the other, but we got to just be a bit more aware of how things work, and also how to treat people who are actually in the position so they have cancer actively. And I am struggling with the lingo here, and that's why I've got Kate here to talk about that part. So let's start with the World Cancer Day. Kate, is this something you've been involved in previously, or can you talk a little bit about what it is and what happens?
So I suppose the start of my cancer journey, and again, that's a phrase that some people love, some people hate, was when my husband was diagnosed with esophageal cancer back in 2011. Cancer was always something that was kind of kicking around in the background. My mum had breast cancer when I was pregnant with my son, but that was as close as it had got. And then when Bruce was diagnosed in 2011, we kind of got thrown into the whole hospital testing implications, outcomes, and I learned an awful lot about what happens and what the processes are and what the procedures are. And when he died in 2012, that became very much a reality. And at that point, the statistics were that 1 in 3 people would be affected by cancer in their lifetime. I was then diagnosed in 2015 with secondary breast cancer, and by that point, the likelihood of you getting cancer was on its way up to what it is now, which is the 1 in 2. So it's always been kicking around for me, but then it became real in 2011.
1 in 2.
1 in 2.
Yeah, and you are one of them, but we want to celebrate you. You've actually just come back from the hospital today, Kate. Tell us where you are now.
So I've just come back. I've just had scan results back, which are, scans for me are routine. They happen once every 8 months, and it's just to check whether any of the naughty little cells have developed and decided to pick on the wrong girl. And yeah, I am now 6 years not clear of cancer. You're never you're never clear of it completely. But I am 6 years without any change, which is brilliant. It means that I can maintain my treatment every 3 weeks routine. And yeah, essentially this is as good as it gets, which is great because it means I can carry on doing all the crazy stuff that I do, and not worry quite so much for a little while longer.
That is fantastic. So happy, so happy to hear. And we can talk a little bit more about what particular type of cancer you had and what you had to go through. But Catherine, tell me a little bit about your what's happened to you, your journey.
Yeah, sure. I was diagnosed at the end of August 2021. I was one of these people who I kind of oscillated in between the place you were, which was it's possibly going to happen to me, or maybe it will happen to me, because I had a lot of breast cysts, an awful lot of them. So I was quite frequently, and I mean more frequently than most people, more regularly than the sort of the 2 or 3 year mammograms, I was quite frequently being checked because of these cysts. Cysts do not mean cancer, and cysts do not develop into cancer. So if you have a cyst, please don't panic, anybody, that it's preempting cancer. 99% of cysts are benign, and 99% of women who have cysts will not get cancer. So I sat in this camp of, yeah, very probably could happen to me, to no, this will never happen to me. And in June of last year, I discovered a lump that was quite large. Now, my cysts have a history of being quite large. And when I say quite large, I was sort of talking about this sort of size. And I thought, yeah, that's a cyst. And so I ignored it. And thought it'll go, because a lot of them go, and I don't always go and get every single one checked, which is a big mistake, but I don't go and get every single one checked. Anyway, eventually by August, this thing was still there. So I was referred under the 2-week rule by my GP. And sure enough, this was a cyst. But I'm very fortunate in so much as my hospital are incredibly thorough in the way they check. So, and I'm sure all are. So it was indeed a cyst, but on the opposite side, there was something hiding behind one of the cysts. And they asked me if they could aspirate the cyst, which freaked me out a little bit, because I didn't particularly want them sticking needles in me and all that kind of stuff, because who really does want the whole, I mean, and we can probably talk about this in a bit more detail. I think we are so protective because it feels a very undignified process for a lady or a woman to go through, to have a room full of people sticking needles in them and all kinds of things like that. So anyway, they aspirated this, and what they were hoping was that in the aspiration, which happens in about 99% of people, that whatever the more solid matter was that was inside or behind this cyst would disappear. When they aspirated, the more solid mass didn't disappear. So they then had to biopsy that. And I went through about 10 weeks of them testing various parts of me, because they then decided to test other cysts that I had to see whether they were cancerous. And eventually I was diagnosed, and it did feel a really long time. And I have to say to anybody in that process, the period of being diagnosed without a treatment plan feels like it is I can see Kate's face as well. It feels like it is the longest period of time ever. And that for me was the most scary time, because after diagnosis, you have a treatment plan. And once you have a treatment plan, you start to feel a little bit more as though you're in control. So I was diagnosed with stage 1, which I think we talked about previously in the language we use around it. I think in hindsight makes me feel quite as though I've escaped quite mildly. So I've had surgery a couple of times, because I had surgery once to remove a lumpectomy. So I had a small lump removed. I always do this, and it's nowhere near that size. It was this kind of size, but it was stage 1. So they removed that. And because I had so many cysts, they like to get what they call a wide margin around the tumour, so that if there are any rogue cells, these things don't escape. So in cutting the margin, but because I had so many cysts, they struggled to get a margin because they couldn't actually see, because there were so many there. It feels, I sound like a piece of bubble wrap inside from what my surgeons had said to me. And I can't feel some of these, which is why it's important to have your mammograms, because I can't feel all these cysts all the time. So they had surgery a second time to widen the margin. and I've since had radiotherapy. My diagnosis at the current time is that I am cancer-free. So I went through it very shortly in a very sharp, but fairly, I don't think anybody is untouched or untraumatized by the idea of somebody saying, actually, and I think the words my surgeon used were, we found a cancer. Those are the most heart-stoppingly devastating words ever, because immediately your connotation is, I'm going to die. And that's what you immediately think. And that's what I think prevents so many of us from, don't mean ever jumping in, because nobody's going, yeehaw, I've got a mammogram today, are they? But that's what stops us. So that was my journey. So I completed treatment in January. So I'm about 3-4 weeks post-treatment now, post-radiotherapy. And fingers crossed, touch wood, everything else, I start now to recover from the radiotherapy. So, yeah.
Amazing. How are you actually feeling now?
Exhausted. I think you feel tired because it's an emotionally draining journey. It's a physically draining one because of the surgery and because radiotherapy has particular side effects. Again, touching wood, I was very lucky. I didn't have chemotherapy.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about my experience as well, because of course there is, we know that we need to check ourselves as women and men as well, actually, because they can equally get cancer. And we have, you know, from teenage years, really, we've been told how to do it, and that we need to just do it on a regular basis. And I have to admit that I hadn't checked myself for a very long time. And I was just lying on my sofa, and I was feeling pretty rubbish already, actually, because I had a very sore throat. I had lost my voice, and I was just feeling really, really rubbish. And I was lying on the sofa, and I was just at the same time feeling myself around the breasts, and I discovered a lump, and it was about that size. So it was pretty large. And immediately, you know, everything just falls through the floor, doesn't it? Yeah, I mean, the physical change, and you feel, and the heartbeat, and your temperature, and your whole life just goes in front of you. And you panic, but you have to control it. So I immediately went to my computer, and I know that at midnight, my GP practice, they release more times. So I must have done it at midnight, and then I got in. So I sent a message, I got an appointment, and I got in the next morning with my GP, or a lady there. So I actually got a phone call from her, because it was a time when we still don't actually always have in-person appointments with a GP. We still have phone appointments. So at the time, it was supposed to be a phone appointment, but she called me first thing in the morning and said, I'd like to see you. So I went into my GP's, and of course, this is a huge relief to just get that first appointment to release and talk to the GP. So she couldn't feel it at first. And this is also what's interesting when we talk about, you know, this whole stigma of it, and that it's so precious, and we're not used to showing our breasts, we're not allowed to touch anyone. And here's a GP, a woman. And I could sense that she felt that she couldn't go in there and do the full job in a way that actually would have been required. So I had to show her, and it was really hard to spot it. And then suddenly she just went like, oh yes, that is quite big, isn't it? And she said, but I can't say for sure, but I have a feeling that it's benign. I think it's just a cyst. And this is where I had no idea what would be. If I had only known this, I would have felt better, I think. But apparently a cyst is smoother and it moves around.
It's like a marble, isn't it?
It was slippery. You couldn't pin it down. And as far as I understand it, if it's an aggressive one, it feels aggressive. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely.
And then here in the UK, we are fortunate enough to try, and they have a rule of you need to be seen within 2 weeks. You can imagine those 2 weeks, I'm sure you've been there as well. It was very, very stressful. And then you don't want to talk to your nearest and dearest, really, because you don't want to freak them out if it's nothing. And you go to your closest friends and talk to them, and you make them panic. So it's quite a tricky period of time, even if it's a matter of, under 2 weeks. So I got in, and the breast scan was first. And again, the lady who checked me there, the GP there, or the doctor, she said, it doesn't feel aggressive, but let's get you scanned. So I had a mammogram, which is basically when they press your boob into a very flat and hard copying machine. It feels like, doesn't it? Very cold and a bit brutal, but of course you've got to do it. And they take the images to see. And what I didn't realize was how unclear those images were. I thought you would have a brilliant clear view with a big lump inside. It's not like that at all. It's quite grainy and mysterious. So after that, I also had ultrasound done. So same as when you're pregnant, they roll this ultrasound handle on top of the breast, and they pressed, and she was very thorough. So they check your armpits and around the breasts, and she could see that lump, but it was very hard to detect what and why it was there. And she said to me, oh, I think it's a hematoma. And because I wasn't familiar with what that was, I heard hematoma. So to me, I thought there had been a bleeding of some sort inside my breast, because hematoma is to do with blood, so a dried blood clot or something. And I've had a blood clot previously, so that got me a bit concerned and confused. And then they said, no, it's fine, you don't need to worry, and it's not an aggressive sort. So I was still so worked up and confused, and didn't hear properly, and I didn't understand. So I had to go home, and then I got a letter, and then I had a call from someone to explain that, no, it's all right, because it's a hematoma. And I still don't actually really know why that what that is and why I had it, but it's basically tissue within the breast tissue. So I'm still feeling like, okay, when is that going to turn into a cancerous thing then? And when is the next thing going to happen? So you're still quite worried, but it was a huge relief, of course, that it was nothing to worry about right then. And again, if I had known what a cyst felt like, of course, I wouldn't have known what a hematoma felt like, but it would probably have been an easier 2 weeks for me.
So my story was that a bit like yours, in that yours, Catherine, in that you had existing cysts that you were aware of and everything else. I didn't have that, but I was actually up in London when I found my lump. And I only found my lump because the previous day I had been walking back from a course that I was doing in London. I tripped over my own feet, Supermaned across the pavement, and tore all the tendons in my ankle. So I'm back at my travel lodge with an ankle that's swelling like this, on the phone to my mum going, do you think I ought to go to A&E? Yes, she says. So off I toddle in a taxi to whichever A&E it was. I have no clue which hospital I went to. Came back on crutches, couldn't put my foot to the floor. And so the following morning, I'm trying to balance in the bath to wash my hair under the shower. I'm standing on one leg and leaning on the wall. And I'm leaning on the wall and I'm thinking, oh, that feels a bit odd. Lo and behold, I found my lump. Okay. So, it is that heart-stopping moment when you're thinking, I've got to get this checked. So I'm still up in London for another 3 days after this. So I'm kind of going, right, okay. On Monday, I'll book an appointment. Booked an appointment, GP says, oh no, it's probably hormonal, don't worry about it. If it's still there in 3 weeks, then, we'll check it out. Okay, fine. So anyway, 2 weeks, it was still there and I needed some more painkillers for my ankle. So went back and said, really not happy. Please, can we? Yes, you can. Put me on the 2-week list. And Julie got an appointment to go and have it looked at, poked, prodded, whatever. So by the time we got to those 2 weeks had gone, I'd got this appointment, and in my heart of hearts, I knew that this was bigger than just a hormonal cyst. So they do the mammogram. Now, I was a big boobed girl. There was a lot of boob to get in that machine. And they did that. And like you, me, I went for an ultrasound. And when I was in for the ultrasound, one of the nurses came in and she said to the doctor that I was speaking to, we want to do a biopsy under X-ray. And I'm thinking, oh, good, that'll be fun.
I had one of those.
Yeah, another round of fun. God, I'm in for it today.
What does that even mean, a biopsy under X-ray?
So a biopsy under X-ray basically means that you're in a radiology, as you would go in for an ordinary X-ray, but they use X-ray guidance to then do a needle biopsy there and then. So under local anaesthetic, to remove and aspirate fluid from whatever it is, take a skin, take a biopsy and send it off. I'm thinking, okay, that's fine, I can do this. I get in there and they went, actually, looking at the size of the lump that we found, and you're thinking, oh, your heart sinks. We're going to do a punch biopsy. Now, a punch biopsy is, as it sounds, if you've ever used a handheld leather press to make a hole in a belt, it's similar to that. It's similar to that. It is the worst pain imaginable. So it's all under local anaesthetic. I came out black and blue. They did 25 of these punch biopsies, just as you do. Yeah.
25.
25.
25.
I have never cried so much in my life. I pity the poor nurse that was in there with me, because she had no skin left on her hands by the time we finished, because my nails were right in her hand. And mine turned out that it was 3 tumours. There was one in my breast that was 9 centimetres. Yeah. And there were 2 in 9. Yeah. So yeah, I had got kind of the grapefruit.
That's a bit.
Yeah. And then I'd got 2 5-centimetre lumps in my left armpit. So it had spread from the breast tissue into the lymph nodes. So it was a stage 3 because it had gone to the lymph nodes.
I think it's time to explain what the different stages are in short. Stage 1, 2, 3, and it goes up to 4, right?
It goes up to 4. So Catherine's was a stage 1. It was an isolated tumour and hadn't gone any further. Mine had gone into the lymph nodes. So it was at least a stage 3 tumour. But actually, when they did further testing, they found that the breast cancer had already spread elsewhere. So I had breast cancer that had migrated to my chest bone, so my sternum, and into my lower spine. Now that makes it stage 4 because it's involving other organs. And it also means that cancer is treatable but not curable. So in previous years, that would have been deemed to be terminal. Now, the powers that be have moved away with that technology. Again, the lingo matters. And terminal is no longer a term that we use. It's not designed to be a treatment that will cure, because there is no cure at that stage, but it is designed to maintain and control the cancer cells that are kicking around. So my diagnosis is also referred to as being secondary breast cancer, because there is cancer elsewhere in my body that has originated from the original tumour. So even though it's in my spine and it affects my bone, it is not bone cancer. That's different. And this is where people get confused, because they say, oh yeah, she's got liver cancer. No, they haven't got liver cancer. They've got secondary breast cancer that's gone to the liver. It's migrated. And that determines what treatment they receive and how it is administered.
Stage 1 is determined by the fact that it hasn't spread. So when I had surgery, I had 2 incisions. So I have an incision under my armpit as well, where they took some lymphs for biopsy.
Yeah.
If that biopsy comes back clear, that suggests there's no cancer anywhere, so that suggests the cancer is contained. It's not 100%, but it's as near as damn it as they can actually get. That suggests that the cancer is contained within your breast. Stage 1 is then the size of the lump and the fact it hasn't spread. Stage 2 can be a slightly larger lump, and again suggests that it possibly hasn't spread. So stage 1 and 2 are the lower grade, if you like, that suggests you've got a contained cancer. When you get to the stage that Kate's at, which is where you've got 3 and 4, that is when you're perhaps looking at a secondary diagnosis as well, or a very aggressive primary diagnosis. It's a bit of a minefield because I didn't know any of this. I didn't know any of this. I didn't know.
Why would you?
Well, yeah. Why would you? I didn't know there was a difference between a hormone positive cancer and a genetic cancer.
Of those diagnosed with breast cancer, less than 2% have inflammatory breast cancer, which is what I've got because I'm special.
Well, I'm really. If it makes you feel better, Kate, I'm really common.
I'd love to be common.
Well, I think this is the whole reason why we're here, right? Because we don't know until we have to. And it's not something we want to know about really before we have to. But it's important to just know that the sooner we can have a checkup, the more consistent we are with checking ourselves, the sooner we can get in to avoid getting this far. And we can stop it.
To be dead honest, May, once you actually get there as well, it's nowhere near as terrifying as you imagine. The story that goes on in your head is nowhere near as bad as the reality.
Yeah, cancer isn't a death sentence anymore.
No.
Thank you so much for sharing your stories, ladies. We need to talk about next the lingo. What do we say? What do we call you? How do we approach someone who's got cancer? Do we call them? Are we feeling sorry for them? Are they on a journey? Are they fighting a war?
When you're talking to people who have a secondary diagnosis or even a primary diagnosis, the last thing we want is condescending comments. It's that inevitable, and how are you? Yeah, Catherine gets it. And it's
oh, but you look so well.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, you don't look as if you've got cancer, but you've still got your hair.
Yes. Are you going to fight this?
Yes.
What else, Catherine? What else do people say?
They say all kinds of things. Are you going to fight this? People fight hard.
Oh, you're such an inspiration.
Oh God, yeah. I am. Well, you can't possibly be, Kate, because I'm the most inspiring woman in the world. Apparently.
Absolutely. You're so strong. You're so strong.
Oh, you're so strong. Don't let it beat you. And the implication of all of these things is what? So if I have a secondary diagnosis, or if it becomes a terminal diagnosis, what, I just succumbed and I allowed it to beat me? Because people don't know what to say, they're searching, and they're searching to be kind, but in their kindness, it
goes wrong. It's hard.
It does go wrong.
And this is why we're opening up here for you ladies to give some options to what to say. When I meet someone who I know is unwell, what do I say? Do I even bring it up? Do you ask? Do you want to be asked, or do you prefer to just...
How are you?
How
Literally.
are you? Yeah.
How are you?
Or, I don't know what to say, can I give you a hug? You know, anything I can do to help?
Yeah.
Yes, you can buy me cake.
Yeah.
Or,
what do you need me to do?
Yeah.
What do you need from me? How can I help you at the moment?
Yeah.
I think that one of the most difficult things I found was not only managing my emotional state, which when I was first diagnosed is literally like through the ceiling, but I had to manage other people's feelings as well. And that was so incredibly difficult. And my mum would say things to me like, but they're just trying to be nice, Catherine, be nice back. And I'd be like, I haven't got any nice left, Mum. I've literally got no nice in me at the moment because I am so strung out with all of this. Are you going to fight? Well, what the hell do you think I'm going to do? Please don't say things like that. It's naff.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's enough.
Maybe
More than
enough.
anything, it's enough. And what
Yeah.
about she's fighting a war that really puts you off, Kate?
I had to make friends with my tumour. You've got something that's growing inside you that's trying to take over and kill you. And so I named my tumour. So my tumour was called Indigo. So purple is my favourite colour. Indy was just shortened version of indigo, and go was what the tumour needed to do. So I visualised this tumour as indigo, and indigo was a 14-year-old teenage girl who was really pushing my buttons. It was that parental bit of, I love you, but I don't like your behaviour. It can stop right here, right now. And I would talk to Indy every morning and just go, do you know what? Enough. You can go.
I'm a bit tearful hearing this, I have to say.
That's fine. That's fine. You're allowed to be, because everybody deals with their tumours in a different way. And my oncologist turned around after 3 months when he rescanned me and he went, I don't know what else you're doing, but whatever it is, keep doing it, because the tumours had shrunk to less than 3 centimetres.
Wow.
And he said, chemo alone cannot do that. By the time I went for surgery, my tumour had gone.
It had gone before you went to surgery?
It had gone before I went to surgery. And it's losing that negativity. So yeah, when people say, oh, he's fighting cancer, no, he's learning to live well with cancer, or she's learning to live well with cancer, or she's undergoing treatment. She's working with her medical team. It's not a fight, it's not a battle, it's not a war. It is what it is.
I think when I told everybody that I had cancer, there were so many people that had had scares, so many people that had had situations that they didn't talk about. I think one of the things that is so important is, and I think we touched on it last week when we first talked, is the normalization of having breast cancer or having any form of cancer as something you live with or something you've been touched by. As Kate mentioned previously, 1 in 2 of us, that's a huge statistic. So it kind of waves in the face of my naivety of, this won't ever happen to me. This will happen to 50% of us. And I think it's time that, rather than us being terrified by it, we have a look potentially at what we can do that can help us prevent it. Cancer doesn't always mean that you're going to end up in a very difficult situation or living with it. It can be, as they've said to me at the moment, I'm cancer free. I went through it extremely quickly. It's changed me massively as a person, I think. There are so many people with it, and so many people that are, I'm not going to get that checked, or so many people that go, I don't actually check myself on the 1st of the month, which is an easy thing to do. If you say on the 1st of each month, I'm going to have a good feel around. But a lot of people don't even know how to feel properly. They don't know how to actually feel themselves. And it's something, again, that you talked about in Western society. We don't touch ourselves because we don't have this holistic approach to things. We kind of have a hugely sexualized approach to boobs, or we have none.
Kate, on World Cancer Day 2022, what is your hope in simple terms, not magic, but what's the sort of the simplest thing that could happen soon for you in your wishes and in your dreams?
I think for me, it's about education. It's about empowering. It's about empowering people to not be scared when they think that there is something that's not right going on. About having the confidence to be able to reach out to a girlfriend, a family member, or whoever and say, I'm really worried about this, will you come with me? It's about people not pushing it under the carpet and kind of go, oh no, it'll be fine. and about people talking openly about what's going on for them or what's going on with a family member, and feeling that they can talk to those of us who do have cancer that's not going to go away, about plans, dreams, aspirations, because we still have them. I still have the aspiration to see my grandchildren. Life is what you make of it. You live every day because you don't know when your number's up. And kind of going, do you know what? Cancer is something that we are all susceptible to. There is no getting away from it. So be aware.
Catherine, on World Cancer Day, what are your hopes and wishes for the world and us people?
Stop being scared. Check. And do something about it. Don't hold off. Don't sit there and go, oh, it'll go away. You're not wasting anybody's time. Even if it only is to make you feel better at the end of the day when somebody says, no, that's nothing. Go and get checked. It's not, you're not wasting anyone's time, and it will make you feel so much better. And the earlier you catch it, the better placed you are to deal with it.
And I think that the one thing I would add is, if somebody says to you, I've got this lump, and you can convince them to go and get it checked, if they say to you, will you come with me? Make sure the answer is yes. They've trusted you enough with that information, and they feel secure enough to ask you to do it. Just do it. Go with them. Hold their hand. Cry with them. Buy them cake. Whatever it is,
Lots of
just
cake.
do it. Lots of cake. Any excuse for cake.
Absolutely.
Kate, you are writing about your, am I allowed to say journey, or is that not allowed then? Is
No,
that
you can say, I don't have a problem with journey. Journey's fine.
Yeah, you're writing about it under Kate Can Do This, and you've done that for quite a few years, haven't you? So how can people find you if they want to get in touch?
People can find me on Facebook. My Facebook page for my cancer journey is Kate Can Do This. And the writings on there that I blogged all the way through my cancer treatment and everything else are also available on Amazon as a paperback self-published book called What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Stronger. And that's available from Amazon. I think it's $4.99.
That is brilliant. Thank you so much. Catherine, are you ready to be reached yet, or is that in the future?
If anybody would like to talk to me, yeah, they can find me on Facebook. My page is Catherine Fagan.
Wonderful, and we'll put your links in the comment box, in the information next to this video, so people can reach you and get in touch, because you've been so amazing, fabulous, and so good to have you here today. Thank you for sharing your experience, your journey, your knowledge, and your hope and joy in all this. It's been really, really brilliant. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you to Kate Henwood and Catherine Fagan. And if you have any questions and comments, please put them in the comment box below. And we're very happy to come back with answers and other questions, and also maybe a follow-up video. Now, everyone, thank you, and go check your boobs.